Hello, everybody, and welcome to Trenton 365. I'm your host, Jacque Howard. You can follow us on social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram via at Trenton, like the city, and the numbers 365. Trenton 365 is all about promoting civic engagement as a way to build a better community for everyone. And we operate upon the acronym R.E.A.C.H, which stands for Recreation, Environment, Art and Culture, Civic Engagement, Health, and nutrition. And today I'm excited because I'm going to be spending some time virtually with a friend, Bernard McMullan. Bernard is doing some amazing things in the region of Trenton, but he's also one of those folks who's like super engaged with what's happening locally and is always willing to help out and to give some information about what he knows about. Now, for those of you who are tuning in for the whole hour, we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. But Bernard, first to get started, I want to talk about Trenton Cycling Revolution. Actually, no, I think we want to do TCCA Taste Trenton first, right?
Okay,
All right,
perfect.
I apologize.
Not a problem.
So we're going to do Trenton Council of Civic Associations, and we're going to be talking about the event Taste Trenton. Now, Taste Trenton is this awesome idea and concept that came up a while back, and Bernard's going to give us some information and details about that. But Bernard, before you do that, can you just give us a layup about Trenton Council of Civic Associations and the idea of this fundraiser, Taste Trenton?
Sure. So TCCA, which just celebrated its 50th anniversary as an organization, is a group of civic associations around Trenton, mostly neighborhood associations. That's sort of a peak organization where we share ideas, support other people's initiatives in these communities, in these neighborhoods, make some suggestions, or even help neighborhoods get organized for a neighborhood association. And the whole idea behind a neighborhood association is to get a group of people who have very similar interests and ideas that may very often they appear because there's a problem. I mean, frankly, that's where many of them start. You know, something has happened in the neighborhood. There's been a burned out house, it's been left around for too long and is abandoned, or there's a construction project that's going on, or the PSE&G folks haven't replaced their lights or anything like that. And people say, we got to do something about this. And it quickly evolves away from that issue to what can we do to improve our neighborhood and keep it functioning well. So at that point, it becomes sometimes a social group. So I head something called the Island Civic Association over here in the West Ward. And we, before COVID, we were doing picnics and we had a few garden tours. We had some river floats down the Delaware River, things like that. The typical things you do that. Plus, we would have cleanups, and we also became pretty adept at engaging the city to come and do things like be sure they mow along the Stacy Park that lines the river and Riverside Drive, remove dead trees. I do about a monthly drive around the neighborhood at night to see what lights are out and actually report those to the city. I have someone in the city who's very adept at getting to PSE&G to get them replaced, and those kinds of things. We also work closely with the city around snow removal because the island, the main road, Riverside Drive, is a emergency snow route. And so we have an email system where I get a call from Public Works to say, we are declaring a snow emergency. Please ask everyone to get their cars off the road. And we have about 100% compliance in getting the roads, all the cars off the road. So then they will plow from one sidewalk from curb to curb. And it makes life so much easier for the rest of the winter when that happens. So those are the kinds of things. So we try to help in local neighborhood associations become as successful as they want to be. So that's TCCA. About 5 or 6 years ago, TCCA was looking to see how they could expand what they did in the community. And I had happened through my spouse to attend what was a dumpling tour in Chinatown. That was a fundraiser for Sandy victims. So that was that far back. And basically we went to a whole bunch of places around Chinatown that sold dumplings. And I came back and said, we should do this here because we were hearing two myths. One myth was that in Chambersburg, right near where you live, all of the restaurants had closed. That was the first myth. And the second myth was there is no place to eat in downtown Trenton. Now, those of us who were around and around the different areas know that isn't true. Yes, just many of the restaurants that people may have remembered in Trenton, and particularly in Chambersburg, had shuttered, had closed for a variety of reasons. Some had moved on. Sometimes the family said, grandma and grandpa ran this business, mom and dad ran this business, and I'm not running this business. And they decided not to take up the mantle. Sometimes they moved to better places or different what they thought were better places. And the reality is that restaurants don't last long. Very few restaurants last longer than 10 years when you look at the history of them. There are a few that are around forever, and then there are a lot that turn over in 1 year and 2 years. But 10 is a mature restaurant. So it wasn't surprising that these places that we knew, the predominantly Italian restaurants in Chambersburg, were closing, but they weren't being shuttered permanently. Very few of them either were knocked down or became abandoned. Rather, they opened up as new restaurants, but they weren't Italian. They reflected the new population of Trenton, which is a Hispanic population, which has grown dramatically over the past 20 to 25 years. And it's not a monolithic community by any stretch of the imagination. So we have a large Guatemalan population. We have a Honduran population. We have El Salvadorians, Mexican, any Central American, Venezuelan. It's incredible what we are graced with and are lucky to have. And so many of these places were opening up. And what we're hearing was not that there were no restaurants, but there are no restaurants that I know. So I'm afraid to go into them because I don't know what they serve. I don't know if they'll speak my language. I won't understand what's on the menu. And to some of them, I would jokingly say, "You read Italian so well," which is, and they say, "Oh, no." I said, "Really, this is not that hard." And by the way, all of the restaurants, almost all of them, have a translated restaurant, a menu for you, so you can figure it out. So in our first year,
Bernard, before you get into that, I do want to touch a little bit on that because I think that's something that a lot of people miss out on. People will travel all over the world, go to New York, want to try different things, but literally will be terrified to do it in Trenton or something of that nature.
Absolutely.
And I know that there's a bit of a stigma that we all have to overcome to encourage folks to come in. But before we go into all the details, what's the easiest way for folks to jump to a website and learn about what's happening with Taste Trenton?
This was just updated this weekend, so this is brand new information. Go to www.tastetrenton.com with no Taste of Trenton, just tastetrenton.com. Though we may now have a new website that will direct you to the real website if you do put in the of. And you scroll down, you will discover our whole list of 34 restaurants and the menus that they're offering for this weekend coming up on the 11th through the 13th of June. And you can see what's available. And they tell you what the cuisine is that's at that restaurant, whether or not they serve alcohol, whether or not they have indoor dining, takeout, or they have an outdoor sitting area or an eating area. So we give you as much information as we can. Plus, it's on a map, and the map tells you here's where you are. Go and do it. And that is being transformed. In fact, it may already have been transformed into an app you can carry on your phone, so you can use it throughout that period. But the good thing this year is that you can see what the menus are right now and start planning your 3-day tour. And the whole idea behind the restaurant crawl is to get you to the restaurant. This is not a let's come to the big arena and go from table to table having a little sample and not remembering anything except I think I like the empanadas somewhere over there. You actually get to experience what the restaurant is. You get to experience what they think some of their specialties are. And the great deal is that you're not ordering entire meals. We've asked them to prepare small sampling dishes, sort of like tapas of their best stuff, if you will. They will cost you about $3 to $5, some a little bit more, some a little bit less, but right in that range. Across the 34 restaurants this year, 23 of them are offering also a dinner menu. So it's a dinner special, much more like a traditional restaurant tour that you might see in other communities.
I want to tell folks about an experience that Vanessa, my wife, and I had a couple of years back. We had decided that we were going to have early brunch, late brunch, and dinner in
Right.
just the one Saturday. And it was absolutely amazing. Each of the restaurants that we went to, Dubai was one of them, Smokehouse 1911 was one of the others, and I can't remember the third, but everyone was so excited to have people being a part of this, getting the word out. The staffs were super interested in serving and being attentive, and it was just a really good experience. It felt a lot like big city, because there were so many people, there was a lot of bustling activity, etc. What are some of the statistics that Taste Trenton TCCA has recognized or found out about from the Taste Trenton weekend crawl?
Typically, we welcomed somewhere between, I think on our first year, which was only had 12 restaurants and was one day, I think we had about 150 guests who went around to many of those 12 restaurants. I don't think anyone made it to all 12 on that one day, but they tried. Some tried. Some went home and took a nap and started again, that kind of thing. Since that time, in the subsequent, we've now done it. This will be our 6th time, I believe. We average around 250 to 350 folks, and they are visiting over 3 days the number of restaurants we have. It's what people don't realize is that when I start this process, I go to the city clerk's office and ask for a list of all businesses, and they code restaurants and bars and everything else. We separate out those that look like they serve food, and those that are have either a traditional restaurant thing or some reason that we might want to invite them. We don't include the Dunkin' Donuts, so any of the chains, by and large, and we don't often include buffet type of places or just standard traditional pizza takeout places. Okay, we're looking for mostly traditional sit-down restaurants. There are about 85 of those in Trenton, so we then look through the list and we invite just about everybody. There's a few places that we either know from experience they just aren't interested in participating, and that's and I understand. But we particularly we look for new places. We try to recruit them because we know they're trying to get a start and they want to get exposed to as many people. And this year, I think of the 34, I think 12 are new places that have opened since 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. The idea and the concept of buy local is, a big thing. There's some large financial institutions that are supporting it, et cetera. I know TCCA is focusing on the local businesses and so forth. How are they doing? How are the local restaurants and so forth doing?
Well, anecdotal evidence, which is all I have to go on, and we haven't collected this systematically. There aren't that many restaurants that we approached or tried to approach that are gone. Okay, from 2019, there's a handful of places that just opened up. Some of them were brand new, and they opened up just at the wrong moment, wrong time. And we've heard that they're not coming back. On the other hand, some of the long-standing restaurants, when I've been able to sit down and talk with the manager or the owner, have told me that this past pandemic year, in many ways, was their financially best year ever because of the massive increase in takeout and DoorDash or whatever Grubhub orders. They said, we haven't served a lot of liquor, which is a mainstay of some restaurants, but in terms of dinners, we've never been this busy. So, that it's sort of a mixed bag. And I think that's true across much of the country around what the financial impact of the COVID crisis has been. Depending on where you were in that equation, it could have been disastrous. And for some instances, it wasn't. So I think I kid you not, I think there's only 3 or 4 places that just haven't reopened or are not going to reopen. Some places that were expected to open during 2020 did not. So some places were purchased. We know the buildings were purchased with the intent of starting a new restaurant there, and those plans have been shelved and are just being revived now.
Okay, and that's good to hear too, because I think it's important for folks to know that just like the economy is anywhere else, it's the same thing with the economies here in Trenton. There are businesses that are doing very well and thriving, and there are ones that aren't doing so good. But we as residents and consumers, we have the ability to make an impact.
Right.
And like you said with Taste Trenton, there are some restaurants and things, they may be owned by locals, but if they've got national support or if they're a national chain, they're in a different situation than someone who has a mom and pop or or mama's kitchen type of a restaurant. So I appreciate that.
What we have, virtually everybody in our tour, in fact, everybody we invite, are essentially locally owned or at least individually owned restaurants. There were 2 exceptions in 2019, and one was our Starbucks community store, which is a special entity all unto itself, and the other one was 2 others. Polo Campero, over near where you live, is actually a Brazilian chain, I understand. So there's a lot in Brazil, and then one in Trenton. So we thought that was cool. And Halal Brothers, a Middle Eastern restaurant, also on Hamilton Avenue. They're part of a broader national network, but everything else is a single restaurant, or maybe they might have 2 restaurants, but both in Trenton.
And for the folks who are interested in that, all 3 that Bernard mentioned are very good. And yes. I would encourage you, if this isn't something that we want folks to come into Trenton and experience these restaurants just one time. Mm-hmm. We want you to come back. We want you to get that list, follow up with them, and stay in contact with those businesses, because a lot of them are doing things in the community, having block parties, having special events, etc. One of the ones that comes to mind is 1911 Smokehouse, with the block parties and their involvement in the community. And I know that there are a bunch of others. Right. Bernard, you mentioned several of the Latin or Latinx restaurants and things that are here too, but we also have some cuisine, Jamaican, other nationalities represented as well. Are they going to be on the list this year?
Absolutely. So we have several Jamaican, or at least one Jamaican restaurant, the Hummingbird downtown, that I can think off the top of my head. We also have African-American restaurants. Isla Mays comes to mind immediately. Louisianian Cajun place that as Big Easy. Yeah. So they're on. What else do I think? Now we also have 3 places that are sort of a little bit different than our traditional restaurants this year. One is, to get you going in the morning, is One Up, One Down.
One Up, One Down. Yep.
The coffee roastery over on Cass Street. So they're offering. I think their special is 10% off everything they sell or you can drink there, which is pretty good. So any of their roasted coffee that they've just ground and roasted and ground is available to people, and they open up early, so you could take your app with you and sort of lay out your day every morning and figure out where you're going to go visit. Another one of those, an unusual place is Royal Creations, which is over on Willow Street, right near the state capitol, and that's a cupcake and pastries place. And so they just opened up, and they're delighted to be on it. So you can take a little break there. And finally, on your way out of town, we deviated from what we normally do, but we invited Todd Faulkner from Tir na Nog, an Irish pub, to join. Now, he doesn't serve food, but he is offering a special drink, and I have to look through my notes here, but basically it's a mixture of select Irish whiskey and either a ginger beer or a ginger ale for a special price. Oh, and you can also sign up for the Irish Whiskey Club free of charge. That means you get to come back and try all 54 or 58 something Irish whiskeys that he sells at the place. So you could come back again and again and again. So they're a little bit off the norm for Taste Trenton, but I thought we'd mix it up a little bit this year.
And kudos to you for doing that, because there are plenty of people who enjoy a nice adult beverage.
Right.
There are plenty of people who've been to the Tir na Nog for St. Patty's Day and some other events. It's great to have them on there. And although they are just located literally one street over from Trenton, they are a
they're a
fixture.
Trenton restaurant. They're actually in Trenton.
Right. You're right. It's right there. I'm sorry.
They're right there. Yes. Yeah.
My bad.
That's one of our requirements is you actually have to be in Trenton.
Yes.
So there are some places right on the edges that people say, well, why isn't, and they fill in the blank, and I say, I'm sorry, it's just on the wrong side of Layler Street.
That's awesome.
That happens. I should also mention we have a new restaurant this year. It's almost exclusively takeout. But it's a Georgian, not as in the state of Georgia, but as in the country of Georgia, a Georgian shawarma place. And a shawarma is shaved beef or shaved lamb wrapped up in what looks like pita bread, and they wrap it up almost like a burrito. And that's what it looks like. And it's really phenomenal. So we've invited them to join, and they have that takeout place. Plus, they have great, interesting foods, canned and bottled foods and packaged goods that you wouldn't find in many other places. And I've tried some of them; they're really great. So we try to emphasize the diversity. And I mentioned the Georgian place. I should mention that the restaurants are clustered, if you will, because that's how zoning works, frankly. And so we have downtown, which is Warren Street and expanding out to City Hall, and where Isla Mays is on Market Street. And then we have Chambersburg. And then there's sort of a few South Trenton area places, which I would say that the coffee shop is sort of South Trenton. And there is a Mexican place there along Cass Street, and that leads to Cooper's. And if you've not been to Cooper's Riverview, it's a wonderful place to take either the in-laws or the person you're trying to impress and sit outside along the river and have a wonderful food and all that. It's a great place to go. So and I'm delighted they've rejoined us this year as well. And finally, we have this area that some Trentonians will know it. We call it's actually officially known as Top Road. And that's way, way up on Olden Avenue and New York Avenue. That's sort of where it is. There are, Dubai is one of those restaurants in that area. There's a new place, comfort food, African-American food called Northside Cafe that's joined us. The shawarma place is right there. And then a new restaurant that's getting rave reviews called El Cazador, which is right near Dubai. Which has a beautiful outdoor sitting area, and everybody I hear who's been there said, "Oh, the food is wonderful. The people are great. They do great service." So we're trying to promote everybody, and there are the ones that are just coming to mind that they're really neat to visit. We want to get people, as you said, acclimatizing to walk across a threshold where they might not have, because I don't know if it's for me. That's I know that sounds like a kid thing. We all adults have that thing. We don't like to be uncomfortable. And so this is an effort to walk in there, and it will not cost you a lot. This is not like we've all had the experience where we've taken someone to a restaurant, we've dropped $80 after buying our own wine, and walked out there saying, wow, that's unfortunate. Well, we're
Yes.
not asking you to drop $80. You're dropping 5 or 10. You might find something you say, I've got to come back here, or I've got to bring Harry or Melissa or whoever, because this is a really neat place. Or you can say, wasn't for me. Or you might say, I'm never coming back here ever again, which is okay. I mean, that's what life experiences are like.
And with
So in
that
any
said,
event, we hope to have a successful event. I'm sure it will be. As I said, some people are very excited about that. I'm very pleased that we have gotten as much interest among restaurants of offering full dinners, because that lays the groundwork if Taste Trenton were to go to a regular restaurant week as not an alternative, but as an add-on, because now we know the base is there. And that might actually appeal to a few other restaurants that we haven't been able to get into the fold.
fantastic. Bernard, I'm going to have to cut it off there. We got to
fair
pay
enough.
the bills on the station.
TasteTrenton.com.
All right. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. And we'll be talking about biking in just a moment. Friends,
good.
you've been listening and watching Trenton 365. It's all about civic engagement and encouraging others to be involved in the process of building the community that they want. I'm Jacque Howard. You can always reach out to me via any of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Trenton 365. And in closing, it's always about justice, peace, and humility.